Imagine there's just all these religions in the world, right? Because there's tons of different religions and people have their own beliefs, their own spirituality. Okay. So imagine that there's all kinds of different lamps with different lampshades, all different lamps, but the light is the same. So God, however we choose to see this almighty force in our life, no matter what the religion is, whatever the belief. Also, some people who are atheists, they may not believe in a God, but they believe in something, right? Like there's this something that flows through us all. Different lamps, but one light. So all loving, unconditional love that we are connected to and that we are part of. Because when we love, you got to admit, it feels pretty great.
Welcome to a Broaderlenspodcast. The opinions expressed on Broaderlenspodcast are those of the guest speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or Broaderlenspodcast. Thank you for coming on Broaderlenspodcast. It really means a lot. I appreciate it, and I look forward to learning from you.
Well, you're most welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thank you. Maybe you can introduce yourself and kind of share a little bit about what you do, since I tend to mess that up a lot.
Oh, you're so funny. Well, you're human, right? And I do the same thing when I interview guests. My name is Sandra Champlain. I'm the author of the book, We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And I also have 2 podcasts. My first one is We Don't Die Radio that I started, it's just about 10 years ago. And I'm up to over 400 episodes. And then I also have Shades of the Afterlife, which is hosted with our friends at iHeartRadio and Coast to Coast AM. They had come to me, 2020, just before COVID hit, actually. And they liked my work and asked if I would do a podcast with them. And who's going to say no to that? And now I have over 170 episodes. And I am somebody who truly never believed in the afterlife, went out for my own evidence of it just to to end my fear, because I had a huge fear of dying. And in that time, not only did I find wonderful reasons to believe in the afterlife, but my dad died back in 2010. And the grief that I experienced really ripped apart the relationships with my siblings and I. And it was a really deep, dark time. And so while I thought I was never going to tell people about what I learned about the afterlife, because to be honest with you, I thought people who talked about this were a little crazy, some of it is too far-fetched out in the world. But because of what I learned about grief, I felt like I had a responsibility to get this information out in the world. And so I had created a free audio called How to Survive Grief that I put out on the internet. And lo and behold, it helped a lot of people, not only through grief, but people started reporting they chose not to end their own lives because of the words in it. So then I thought I need to get to the biggest audience possible. And that's when I wrote my book, We Don't Die, A Skeptic's Discovery of Life After Death. And like it or not, people, I slip in that chapter on grief because we all will face grief if we haven't already. And it can destroy us, really. People do take their own lives, but it also ends relationships. So I felt so strong I needed to share what I know. But if we don't die, who are we and what is our life for? And anyone who knows me, I'm all about living a powerful life, knowing that our loved ones are around. So besides doing the podcasts and having the book, in the last 4 years, we've been running online courses about mediumship and trance development and sitting in your own power and all kinds of different things, really to help strengthen people. Prior to that, I had a 35-year career with my mom. We had a catering company working with race car teams, traveled the world, not the world, but we could travel Canada and all around the United States. And unfortunately, due to COVID, we had to close that business. And so that was the birth of the online business. And between you and me and all your listeners and viewers, I think it was not planned by the unseen world, but it got to my words could get to the most amount of people that may never buy a book. I thought somehow people find YouTube, sometimes how people find podcasts. And so I'm just somebody really, really committed in helping people live the best life possible with the reality of the afterlife and sharing everything I know about grief. So there you go, in a nutshell.
Well, thank you. I truly love and respect that about you. And grief, especially with grief, I mean, people get stuck in grief and pretty much die. They're the Walking Dead, and it's hard to overcome grief and not have the coping skills and community and people to talk to about how to walk through grief so it doesn't kill them.
It's true. Well, we're never taught about, well, we're not taught about so much when we're little kids, but grief is something we're all going to face. And honestly, I'm usually this happy go lucky person, always with a smile on my face, or usually very, very positive. And it started happening before my dad passed. And then, of course, after he passed. But what I didn't know, and what so many people don't know, is our brain chemistry actually changes. Our physiological makeup. We run on neurotransmitters, like a car has gasoline and engine oil and all those different fluids. These neurotransmitters control us, and when we grieve, not just the death of a loved one, but we go through a divorce, a separation, uh, lose money, lose our health, so many different things. This These neurotransmitters get almost depleted,
Mm,
and we think we're okay and we think we should be able to change somehow, but we don't know that as our whole system isn't functioning correctly. And that has to do with the anger we feel and the tears, and some of us lose our memory when we're grieving, and so many other things. So for your listeners and viewers, if anyone wants a free copy of my book, I give them away like crazy. It's the PDF version. But chapter 10 is how to survive grief. And obviously, we can't get to all of that in the time we have today. But my website is wedon'tdie.com. And if you want to enter your name and your email address, it says you get the first few chapters of my book and that grief audio. The truth is, it's the entire book, and you can read it and have that information and just know some tools that can help move through the grief so that we don't die inside, like you were talking about, The Walking Dead. So I think it's all of it's good, but the most valuable chapter really is helping people get back on their feet and moving through that grief.
yeah, thank you. You talked about the neurotransmitters not working correctly when we're stuck in grief. Is that why people need to like start looking for like alcohol or coke or some type of drug or negative behaviors to help produce some of those, get those transmitters working, like dopamine and stuff? Do you believe?
Yeah, it's a good question. One of the things I relate grief to, it can be if someone is addicted to a drug. So you have that drug and then you no longer have it. You go through withdrawal, right? So you would never trust somebody going through withdrawal with maybe your bank account number or your debit card or something like that. You just wouldn't, because we know. But when we are grieving, the love that we share for another person is like a chemical addiction. It is.
Mm,
And then when that's cut off, we are craving it. We're going through that. That's why I say you got to be gentle with somebody going through grief, and even yourself. So we are looking for ways to feel good, and it can be by eating and drinking. And that's not the best way through it. It really isn't. But I think it's human to try to find a replacement. And of course, there is none.
mm,
So getting a lot of sunshine, getting exercise, eating healthfully, getting some sleep, talking to people, even if you need to repeat your story over and over and over again, not feeling alone. I went to a puppy place with a friend of mine. It was just an all natural breeder, and I got to play with puppies. And when we can be in that present moment, even if we can watch a funny movie or read a book, something to get our mind off the grief, it can help to restore those levels. And it takes a long time. It truly does.
mm,
I wasn't in deep grief all of this time after my dad died, but it was 4 years after he passed that all of a sudden I felt like I was back. It was like this dark cloud was no longer following me around. So for me, that's the best way I can say what grief, when it left, what it felt like was this dark cloud. But it's awful. I think it's the very worst thing that any human being can feel.
Thank you for sharing that. You're known as the afterlife skeptic. From being a skeptic to a believer. Like, maybe I could have. I would love to ask you to walk us into your upbringing and how this all came about to get into the near-death experiencers and interviewing them.
Yeah, sure. I wasn't just a skeptic. I was like a nasty skeptic. I knew there could be no evidence of the afterlife. Now, how me as a young person knew that? Well, that's got to be the ego, right? That I was so opinionated. My parents are great. Dad has passed. Mom is still around. We grew up in a family that you have to see it to believe it. Not that you did, and not like we didn't go to church, because we did. We grew up Catholic and we went to church, but I didn't feel like we were a spiritual family at all. And in our town, we had a lady who was a psychic, and she was always in the news, and all of her predictions were always wrong. So somewhere, I think it just went into my head that that stuff isn't real. People charge money. Everybody wants to know their future. And that whole world is something that people buy into, but it's not real. It's entertainment. So I always thought that. And then I'd hear stories of near-death experiences, and young me knew all the answers. Our younger selves, we knew. We were smarter than our parents, of course. And I just knew, well, that has to be when the brain shuts down for the final time. You see the lights and things. And, there's studies out now. The common science in medicine says that near-death experiences are definitely not a byproduct of the brain shutting down. They're not all. Some are willing to say what it is, but some of the others are, they're not going to tell you it's life after death or that our consciousness can be outside of our body. But they've definitely proven that it's not our brains shutting down, because they've proven so many different things that happen. They know it's something extraordinary, and I think it's just a matter of time before that tipping point will happen that they'll say, okay, yeah, we know what it is.
Yeah, thank you. So what got you into studying and interviewing near-death experiencers?
It was the death of my dad that was the tipping point to have me be on loudspeaker about what I knew about the afterlife, because it was what I found out about grief. So then I worked with my mom, this 30 plus year business catering for race car teams. I was so busy, but I still wanted to learn more. I had helped a friend of mine figure out how to create a podcast. He was an entrepreneur, a business one. And something just hit me. Well, why couldn't I interview people about life after death? In this way, I could talk for an hour or so. I wouldn't have to buy a book. I would get the best information, and then I'll just put it out there in cyber world, right? So that was the genesis of it. And anything I ever get, I always share with others. But little did I know that these interviews, and it's not just on near-death experiences, it's on the whole range of different reasons to believe in life after death. And certainly near-death experiences are one of the biggest, and I think that's what people search for the most. So there's always plenty of those. But I thought, I'll just have these recordings. And I have to be honest, the first ones I put out there, the sound quality wasn't good. I'd call people on the phone, and I figured out a way to record it, and I just put it out there. Well, in 2018, it was 4 years after I started my podcast, there was an afterlife symposium that happened in Arizona. And I got asked if I would like to be a speaker for that. And I said, well, yes, sure. And I asked, is it okay if I share this symposium with my listeners, never knowing how many people were listening? The symposium had 750 attendees, 550 of them on the registration form. How did you find out about this symposium? said Sandra Champlain's We Don't Die radio.
Wow.
And that was the very first time I met listeners face to face. And I heard their stories. Grief is what brings us looking most of the time for evidence of the afterlife. And I met people face to face that had such wonderful stories to share and had hope for the first time based on these words. So I made a commitment to myself that forevermore, I will continue to share stories and do everything possible I can to help people believe in the afterlife, help people through grief. And then in the process, what is your life for? What's meaningful to you? You know, someday we're all going to leave this earth and we're going to look back and say, you know, did I get my money's worth out of this life? And so anything to help people push the envelope and, you know, get out into the uncomfortable zone and try something new, whatever that may be. That's what I'm here. So does that answer your question a bit?
Oh yeah, it does. Thank you. You know, I've talked about this before on my podcast, but when my father passed away, I had an outer body experience, and I was interviewing my friend Nicole Lindy, who's a medium, and she called it soul blending. And what happened was when he died, he fell off the cliff. I grabbed his body, and when I grabbed his body against the rocks, and as he's dead, I went out of my body, and I didn't talk about this for a long time I didn't even tell my uncle who was with me at the time. I would share about it when I would share in the 12-step meetings and they asked me to speak. I'd share about that experience, but I didn't get much in detail with that. But until I got to started this podcast, I started to share about it a little bit more. But yeah, I tapped into my father's consciousness or soul, and I realized that there's no death. That was my first experience with knowing that there's no such thing as death, because I seen everything outside of my body. I even looked at the whole scene of exactly what was going on, and I realized, you know, there is no such thing as death. Who we really are doesn't die.
Absolutely. Now there's a whole field on that called shared death experiences. It's not
Oh, I
just near
never heard
death
that.
experience. Yeah, shared death experiences. I can point you in the direction of some pretty great people to interview about that. It's great that you share your story, because when someone else hears your story, they can relate to it. You know, long ago, before Dr. Raymond Moody in the 70s coined the term near death experiences, a lot of people were afraid to share these things. And then now, I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of stories of them. And boy, to be part of, I don't want to say a club, but there is the IANS, the International Association for Near-Death Studies, which is probably the biggest organization with chapters all over the world that people can connect and tell their stories, and they do things online, and you don't even have to have a near-death experience to belong. But to hear these stories, people can put themselves in, and that's why I feel every story is important for what people go through. I don't think there's one death experience that fits for everybody. You know, near death experiences are all so different. There's a lot of commonalities, but they're so different. But when you think there's almost 9 billion people on planet Earth and how many people have lived on Earth all of this time, we each have our own version of life. And I think we would each have our own version of our dying process and what exactly happens. And of course, you know, different religions see different things, or if you don't believe in a higher power, you might just see a light, who knows? But it's fascinating. So I don't think there's any one size fits all for how we live our life, because we're all different. And I think the same thing happens for when we cross over, although there are, you know, a lot of commonalities.
Yeah, thank you. And that's one of my questions I wanted to ask you. Why is it personalized through our belief system or our subconscious? Uh, why do sometimes people that are Christian, Jesus may be coming, or like, you know, we have a mutual friend that I've become friends with, is Pooja, and I seen her interview a lady from India, and um, deities from the Hindu religion came to her. Why do we find that with people, or sometimes their pet or their loved ones that they were, you know, deeply connected to? Why does that happen, do you believe?
Well, first of all, whether you call it God or what the universe, whatever you believe is that higher power, that we're all connected to. I believe that there's so much love for each one of us. Not only do I believe our loved ones are with us, but God is how the word I use, guides, perhaps. There's so much love for us. And I think as human beings, we evolve, because certainly, I'd rather live right now than 100 years ago. So we evolve, we do. And I think loving folks in the hereafter, the universe, God, there's not a one size fits all for humanity. There's different cultures, there's different beliefs. So if I was master of it all, I would certainly devise a plan that when we expire, that the first thing we experience is something that we're used to and that we're very comfortable. I also think that our afterlife is very similar to our life. From everybody that I've interviewed, all the different kinds of mediums and so much, we first get to this place that is very comfortable to us. They say people create homes in the afterlife, we communicate with thought and all of that, but you get to pick your best age, your best look, all those good things. If you had any kind of infirmity, they go. But you're greeted, and this is, when I have somebody that comes over to my house, I want to make sure they're greeted well and there's food on the table and their room is made up. And so as far as the afterlife, depending on what your belief is, the greatest host is going to have you come home and feel very comfortable. So once you realize that you have transitioned, of course, we all hear about the life reviews, and there's a lot of similarities and great things there. No judgment. We look at our own lives and such. But then we get to explore places like the halls of learning and perhaps take a course on how to communicate with our loved ones back on Earth. But it's some place that we're comfortable with. And I know there's people that are very, very, very religious. And what a shock to the system it would be is that, if, say, you've spent your whole life believing in Jesus and Jesus wasn't there, right? No. So there are people, and I've interviewed them, that were hardcore atheists, didn't believe in anything. And so their first reaction when they passed is, beautiful place, similar to Earth. And they just felt this incredible light. And maybe their dogs and cats were there, or their loved ones were there greeting them. And then slowly, it opened up into more and more. So there's so many beautiful stories of people that never believed that now do. And so I just think it's a very kind and loving God, universe, collection of souls, whatever, that as we continue to grow here on Earth, and here we are in 2024, that our afterlife is kind and loving, and let's be a great host and have them arrive someplace they're very comfortable. So I think that's the best way I can explain it.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. You brought up life review, and I've interviewed a few people with NDEs, and I always say, because I got sober in 2009, and I did the 12 steps, and in the fourth step it talks about taking a moral inventory, and I did a life review. I tell people, because the way they describe what happened to them during this life review, you come out of there with more compassion, more understanding, and more attuned to the oneness of life. At least that's my experience with going through the fourth step. I looked at each resentment, each experience that I thought was hurtful, or had some kind of anger or displeasurable experience, in emotion attached to it, and I looked at it from different angles, and it gave me so much more understanding. I always use the Buddhist saying from Thich Nhat Hanh, "Understanding is love's other name," and when I could truly understand how I hurt people, or how I was hurt, or how things affected me, mentally and physically. I have more like compassion, and it felt like it tapped me into the oneness of life. I live that way today. I'm not saying I don't suffer from assholism at times, but I have tools to use to not be that person anymore. Not be more positive, be more loving, more kind, and I understand deeper. I have a deeper sense of understanding that we're all one.
Oh,
So
congratulations to you for all you've been through and what you've overcome, and now that you get to make a difference with others. I know it's not an
yeah.
easy journey, and I know we're always human. We're never going to be perfect.
Yeah, thank you. But what have you learned from from people that had NDEs uh, um, about the
The
life
life
review?
review.
Because I love hearing about it.
I do too. I love hearing about it, but there's also something where if you're going to get this life review anyways, why not do it now? Right?
Mm,
So then we have more time to investigate and play with our loved ones in the afterlife. So when we expire from this world, migrate, transition, whatever you wish to call it, it is said by most people that there is this life review. Now, it's not a make wrong. There's nobody judging you saying heaven for you and hell for you. And in my heart of hearts, I don't quite believe in the whole heaven hell kind of thing. I think if there is a hell, it's right here on earth, because how can there be anything more painful than what we witness going on in the world? And so there's no judgment. It is us looking and taking that moral inventory and being understanding of who we were, how our life was lived. It is said by most people that you will relive moments of your life from the perspective of the people that you impacted.
mm,
So if you did say a few unkind words and you hurt that person's feelings, you'll actually get to feel those feelings from their perspective. It's not something to be feared, because my belief truly is our younger selves did the best we could with what we had. Due to our upbringing, due to our parents' baggage, whatever that may be, we did the best we could. If we could have done something else, we would have. So I think
mm,
guilt, even right now in life, let it go. Try to do your best to make amends, but don't carry that guilt with you, because you did the best you could at that time. But in the life review, going through and really seeing how you grew as a soul, what you learned, because out of our toughest times comes the most amount of soul growth. And I think that is one of the reasons we're here on earth, really to grow. If the hereafter is so great all the time, here on earth, it's not. So this is how we learn. And any of us who look back on our lives, it really is the toughest times that we learned the most. So once we go through that and we take a moral inventory of perhaps what we could have done a little bit differently, or perhaps how we hurt another, or even ourselves, we are not kind to ourselves. So, we would never talk to people the way we talk to ourselves, I think. But after we go through that and the negative or the not nice stuff, then we get to see the impact our lives had in a positive way. So we get to
mm.
see how we impacted people through their eyes. Maybe the difference one of your podcasts makes and what somebody does with the information, and they tell two friends. And next thing you know, there's a bunch of people that are serving humanity, doing really nice things. And it all happened from hearing one podcast. Who knows? But you get to see the ripple effect of who you were in life and the difference that you made. And I
Mm.
think that is really the cherry on top of the cake for the life review. And I think not only doing a moral inventory and having a life review while we're here on earth of what we could have done different, and make your apologies and be the best person you can be, but if there is that ripple effect of the good, plus it feels good to help people and be kind, add a little bit more of that in your life. I think we are here to live life and experience things and learn and grow. But so often they say service is the coin of the spirit world, being
Mm.
kind to other people, making a difference. And no, you don't have to write a book. No, you don't have to have a podcast, but giving somebody a smile, paying a compliment, doing a good deed, you can't go wrong. And I also know that if you're grieving, if you look for ways to volunteer, that really helps move through the grieving process. You're with people, you're paying attention to making a difference. So all good things. But bottom line is try to have that life review while you're here. And then there's more time to play when we get to the afterlife.
Yeah, thank you. In ancient Kemet or Egypt, they had the weighing of the heart. I wonder if that's what it really meant. Weighing of the heart, having a life review. You never know, but just to see how well you loved, and really looking at your life experience. We never know, but always got me thinking.
Yeah, it's good. And love is the common denominator, really. It's the most powerful force. And it's tough being a human, isn't it? It really is. Because, I'm not ego free. Some people can disappoint me and all of a sudden it's like, why did they do that? And I thought, oh, Sandra, that's your ego. Put in a little love. You're not living in somebody else's shoes. You never know what they're going through and why they do what they do. So it's a journey being human.
Yeah, you're right. I always say the ego's not your amigo when you're unconscious of it. Um,
Correct.
and
I
for
like
many
that.
years, I was so unconscious of my ego. But now I'm more aware. I think that life review or the fourth step really helped me look through the lens of my heart. And
Yeah,
I'm so grateful for that experience. That's probably the deepest
absolutely.
spiritual teaching I've ever learned is learn how to question my perception and look at things from a different angle. Or like I always use Wayne Dyer's quote, when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
I love that. And when you
Yeah.
mention perception, I don't want to just step over this. One of the things when we're grieving is we get into fights and feuds with people, or we may, you hear these things about relationships that come apart during grief.
Mm,
Those neurotransmitters that we lose so much of, those control our perception. So two
mm,
people can be looking at the very same thing and believing something completely different, which is what happened with my siblings and myself. We were arguing about things that never happened over my dad's care, and they were convinced that things happened. I was convinced things happened another way, had no idea that that part of our brain that we use for perception is off when we're grieving. So it's so important that we're gentle on ourselves and others because um, our perception is off. So
mm. Yeah, thank you.
I'm grateful I've been on this journey, and I'm grateful that I can share.
Yeah, thank you. I really appreciate it. Speaking of, you mentioned God. You used the term God. What's your understanding, or how would you define God?
That's a big question.
Mm,
I feel that there is unconditional love that exists in the world that was before we ever came here, probably even before Earth was established. This unconditional love, and a lot of people refer to light. They sign their emails in light and love. I'm like, what is all this light? If you can imagine God, that's the word I'm going to use right here, being this light that flows through each one of us. We're all alive. We're all filled with this energy, this
mm,
light source. But people, let's say this. Imagine there's just all these religions in the world, right? Because there are.
mm,
There's tons of different religions, and people have their own beliefs, their own spirituality. Okay. So imagine that there's all kinds of different lamps with different lampshades, all different lamps, but the light is the same.
mm,
So God, however we choose to see this almighty force in our life, no matter what the religion is, whatever the belief. Also, some people who are atheists, they may not believe in a God, but they believe in something, right? Like there's this something that flows through us all. Different lamps, but one light.
mm,
So all loving, unconditional love that we are connected to and that we are part of. Because when we love, you got to admit, it feels pretty great. It's pretty divine. It's pretty special. And then those
mm,
who have had near death experiences, there's no way they can put into words the amount of love that they feel and that is felt for them. They just say it's outside of language because it's whatever we feel is love now times a million.
Mm, I love that. How has interviewing so many people that had near-death experiences changed your life?
I think it gives me life.
Mm.
I'm human just like everybody else. I wake up in the morning and I don't remember I'm Sandra Champlain, who's interviewed over 600 people, right? I've got lots of episodes out there. I'm hard on myself. I look in the mirror, too many pounds, gray hair coming in. Have I accomplished everything I want to do? I procrastinate, right? I'm not perfect. But then all of a sudden, it's whatever o'clock, and it's time to do an interview. And it's time to hear someone's story and hear what they've overcome, hear the reason they have to believe in the afterlife, whether it's signs from their loved ones or whatever it may be, near-death experience. And it's like they activate me, like a little spark gets reignited within me. Oh, yeah, that's who we are. We're souls having a human experience. Yeah, that's right. Our life matters. Yeah, that's right. We're each one of a kind. We're each special.
Mm.
Our life, we can do what we want with it. There's no right or wrong way to live life. There's just the way I choose. Oh, yeah, that's right. It's about helping others and sharing. And after every interview, and I bet you feel the same way, you feel like $1,000,000. You get to remember who you really are. And so I
Mm.
think it's important for people to listen to podcasts and read books and talk to people about this subject. There's some good movies out about the afterlife and, to just remember who you are. So I
Mm.
think that's the biggest gift that I get out of it, because once I've remember who I am, then there's this ripple effect. I think I hold my head a little higher. I think I remember to be kind. I remember, don't sweat the small stuff. If somebody irritates me or something like that, it's just like they're just doing them, right? Like I haven't lived my life through their eyes. Just give them love. So it just helps me remember the bigger picture.
Mm. Yeah, thank you. You obviously interviewed a lot of people. What is one of the most heart touching experiences or stories that you can touch on briefly that touched your heart?
Yeah, I can just share one of the most recent ones. It was actually two. Uh, the first one is a woman. Her name is Maria Pei, and her two teenage boys were staying with their dad. She was divorced. He gave them sleeping pills and killed both boys, and then he turned the gun and he killed
Mm.
himself. Devastating. And hearing her story from going through that and never having really believed in the afterlife or looking into it or anything, but her journey. And she met a woman who taught her how to quiet her mind. And it's almost like a shamanic journey, how to
Mm.
blend with the love from the unseen world. And she has an incredible story. And she even gives her book away for free on her website so that people can read and find these tools. But it's how she went to reconnect with her two sons, Sean and Kyle. And 100%, she is certain she not only connects with them, she's seeing them grow up. They're giving her tools and answers and things about her life. And from going from such grief to where she is now, she travels the world. She talks to people. She helps other people. She started a nonprofit in her boy's name. So it's
Mm.
Sean and Kyle imaginefund.com. Now I'm thinking, is it Kyle and Sean or Sean and Kyle? But you can find her book there. But she says her life is so great. And she says, would I want my boys back? Absolutely. But she says to go through grief and to go on this journey of self-discovery, she says, it's so important for her. And then also just recently, I talked to Dr. Matthew McKay, who also wasn't into this stuff at all. He wasn't. He is a professor. He teaches psychology. He's got dozens of books out helping people with anxiety and depression and others. And his son, adult son, was somebody, he was out on a bicycle ride and someone, I guess, fought him for the bicycle and they ended up shooting him and killing him. And so this dad started looking for answers, and he, there's a great thing called IADC, Induced After Death Communication. And it's not something to be taken lightly. This is really, you're working with a therapist. These sessions are 5, 6, 7 hours. And they do something called eye movement desensitization. I can't think of the whole thing, EMDR. And you're looking left, right, following the tip of someone's pen. And it's used usually for soldiers and people who are feeling PTSD. They can't let those feelings and the pain go. And this was found out through the Veterans Administration here in the United States. And this fellow named Dr. Alan Botkin gave a little too much left, right eye movements to someone as they were reliving these memories. And next thing you know, they were seeing into the afterlife. And they actually told Dr. Botkin about his loved ones that he's like, this person doesn't know me. They couldn't know this. And so he's created this new thing called IADC, Induced After Death Communication. It's not that new, maybe 10 years old or so, that you can work with a therapist and have this happen. So this professor, Dr. Matt McKay, he went to see Dr. Alan Botkin and he thought nothing happened. He had to relive the death of his son and the pain. And, it's horrific to go through. But he says, he didn't think anything happened. But he says all of a sudden he could hear his son's voice. And his son was talking to him. He said, it wasn't my imagination. It was so clear. And from there, he continued to look. And so he talks about on my episode 436 of We Don't Die Radio, how that each one of us can do this. And what he does is he lights a candle and he holds something that belongs to his son. And he slowly just pays attention to his breath. He's got a pen in hand and he talks to his son by nature of writing. And he says, in the beginning, yeah, you can feel that it's mostly you, but he says, you keep up a practice with your loved one. And he says, the name of his book is called Seeking Jordan. And he is 100% sure because he feels Jordan's love. When he writes, he says, there are things that come to him that he says were not even in his imagination. So he couldn't have made this stuff up. He says, I wouldn't even know these things, so he's getting evidence of his son living and what's the purpose of life and all of these great things. So those two stories really touched my heart because as much grief as I have felt through the passing of pets, my father, my grandmother, and the more we love, the more it hurts. But I'm not a parent, and I can imagine that a parent losing their child is probably the most horrific thing that can happen. And to show two people not only how they moved through grief, and grief never leaves us. Sometimes it's not as strong, but it can be reactivated. We all know that. But both of these two, Maria and Dr. Matt, they both use grief as a way to communicate that they, instead of making the grief wrong and how awful they feel, it's like, let's remember a shared memory together. And then they start talking to their kids. And whether it's having a pen in hand or closing your eyes and just imagining you're on a park bench talking to them, but remembering that love. And that also, you don't need to have a pen and you don't need to journey off. Our loved ones communicate with us all the time, but it's so easy for us to be too busy and we're not in the present moment and we just kind of blow it off. Oh, that's just my imagination. Well, correct. That's how they communicate. It's through our feelings. You'll get a memory that pops into your mind out of the blue, or you just feel their love. I mean, that really is them. So those, I think, are the two most recent and also that just really touched my heart because of the depth of the grief and then how they're living life now and how they're making such a difference. And we've all heard of those great big pine trees that the only way that they can reproduce is if there's a huge forest fire. Like they need that intense heat to be able to grow. I think that grief has that power. Certainly it does to kill us and have us being the walking dead, like you said earlier. But it also can get us on that spiritual journey about who are we and what is our life for. And we can have a pretty good life out of it by being of service and making a difference and realizing that we don't die, that our loved ones are around, and that our life is for a purpose.
Yeah, thank you. You know, I was what came to mind for me is when my father died. I didn't know how to grieve. I didn't know how to cope and talk about these things. So I started to drink more. My drinking escalated.
Mhm.
My anger, my hatred, I had all these resentments and shame and guilt and remorse, and all that stuff was just amplified. And I needed just to escape. And the best way to escape was to either doing negative behaviors or just pounding liquor, just drinking, guzzling all those emotions down. Um, so my next question is how, going back to the grief, um, how do you help people with grief? I know everyone's different. Everyone deals with things differently and sees things and perceives things differently. What are some ways we can, how do you help people or give them some kind of understanding with
Yeah, I
grief?
think thank you for asking. The first thing is the education. That's why I have that chapter and give so many books away for free, to be honest with you, is to let people know that a lot of grief is out of your control, that your body has lost so many of these healthy neurotransmitters and it's trying to make them up again, really. So if you were to think of yourself as somebody who has been taken off a drug, right? You'd be very gentle with that person, knowing they're going through withdrawal and that it takes time for the system to be whole again. So it's having that education that you're going through this. And part of it is you're going to be angry. You're going to be forgetful. You're going to have fights with people. You're going to not see things the same way as other people. Some people just want to talk a lot. Some people don't want to talk to anybody and want to eat, want to drink, whatever that may be, that it is human. It is normal. There's nothing wrong with you. The mind can play tricks on you. The mind can race. The mind can be filled with guilt and dread. And there's so much. So it's giving people the education of what grief is and that it takes time. It really does take time. The only way to the other side of grief is to go straight through it. What we
Mm,
resist persists. So every time you eat to get rid of the feelings or drink or whatever that may be, they're going to resurface. So you got to ride the waves of the grief. You do. But to catch yourself in the act, sometimes there are things like to feel guilt over what you did or what you didn't do, right? Like I said earlier, it doesn't serve anybody. The past is in the past. The mind, though, will try to make a habit out of your thoughts. So the more you have a repeated thought, like, I should have never said this to so and so, and I did, and what if I didn't? The more you keep thinking that, the more you will keep thinking that. You've developed a new neural pathway for thought, and so your mind will automatically give you that thought. So I think we can short circuit some of the thoughts that aren't serving us. Like I
mm,
talked about Miss Maria and Dr. Matthew, when they feel grief, they put in, okay, I feel this grief because I love so deeply. And love is a good thing, and then put in a nice memory that you had with your loved one. If you go down the tunnel of, oh, I shouldn't have done this, and you're catching yourself in this guilty thought, say, oh, wait a minute. This is, I don't have to go down this. I don't want to start a new habit of thinking this thought. Start thinking about what you're grateful for.
mm,
And it's hard. It really is hard sometimes when you're feeling terrible to think, oh, what am I grateful for? But then you remember there's people that don't have a bed to sleep on. There's people that don't have a home to live in. There's people that don't have shoes. And so for even the simplest things that you can be grateful for, and you can start feeling that gratitude, like you can slide that in instead of feeling that guilty thought. And the more we can practice gratitude, and so many people say, oh, gratitude, oh yeah, but it's true. When you start really feeling it, all of a sudden, instead of paying attention to negative things, positive things start happening to you, right? It's like, am I making this up, or are good things starting to happen? Well, they do, the more gratitude that we feel. So understanding grief, understanding the world of it, doing everything you can nutritiously to get enough, exercise and eat healthy foods, be with people, to understand that it's a journey. I think it helps to investigate life after death, to know that your loved ones are still around. Like this Dr. Matt McKay, he does this writing, and sometimes when a wave of grief comes on, he'll burn a candle, think of his son, and just start writing. Writing, journaling, all of that can be so healing. And as horrible as it is, I think in the future, this grief can be used, because maybe you'll be sitting next to somebody on a train or at an airport or on an airplane somewhere, and they'll say, I just came from the funeral of so-and-so. And by you being there and how you lived your life and how your experience of grief was, those little things that we've learned can make such a difference with someone else. And so ultimately, without love, we wouldn't feel grief. And one of the reasons we're here on earth is to love our hearts out, so you can know that you're on the right track.
Yeah, thank you. When I first heard that, that was so healing to me. Elizabeth Lesser said, grief is showing that you love very well. And that, I don't know, for some reason that helped, gave me some type of healing and understanding. So
Me
it was
too.
very helpful to hear that when I first heard that. So thank you for saying that.
You're welcome.
Who are we really? You often hear people say, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience. And your
You want my
understanding.
take on that?
Yeah, what's your take on
Okay, I'm
that?
going to say this in a funny way. All right. Imagine that we're in the hereafter. We got clouds around us. Everything's good. Everything we can imagine. Poof, there it is. We have it. What's your favorite food? Do you have one?
Oh, yeah, I like Mexican food.
Mexican food. Okay. So imagine your heaven is all Mexican food all the time. All the time. Breakfast, lunch, dinner, right? What happens after a while? You might want something
Get
else.
burned out. Yeah, I
You
get
might
burned out.
want something different, right? The things that we have that are so special and so good, if we don't feel what it's like to not have them, I don't think we can appreciate them as much.
Mm,
So here we are, little souls in heaven, right? And it's good. Life is good, but you're missing something, right? Because it's too much good all the time. You just don't feel it, right? In fact, I just learned 2 weeks ago that the way our human brain is designed, which is bizarre, but even if things are really good, we look for the negative, right? We're always
yeah.
looking for the negative. It's probably some survival thing. So even if things are really good, we never feel that they're really good. So there's an opportunity for these young souls to come to a place where they can really feel good. But here's the thing. You're going to have negative feelings. You're going to meet negative people. There's going to be negative situations, negative emotions. But you'll learn, for the negative, you really get to feel the positive. And us
Mm,
young souls, like, bring it on. But then, you're told you're going to get there and you're going to forget who you really are. You really are a divine soul having this human experience. You're taking a trip there, but you're coming back home. But while you're there, you're going to feel like it's real. Oh, don't worry.
mm.
I'll be just fine. So then we get here, we totally forget, right? And life is awful. I know we have some good moments. I do. And I know I've had some joy and some laughs, but I sure have had a lot of heartbreak. And I'm sure you and your
Mm,
audience has as well. We forget that we're that soul. We forget by things like gratitude, right? Things can happen that energy is invisible, right? Nobody really knows how the internet works and how we're connected and how satellites work. And there's this whole invisible world that's around us. And we buy in that we have to see it to believe it, that, oh, this is
mm.
all so real, but the truth is we're living a miracle, aren't we? Even having the technology that we have, we're living a miracle. I mean, this is fantastic. When you think of our earth as just this round orb that had trees and water and rocks, and vegetation, that we can have everything that we see out of those basic elements. Like, we are living a miracle. And that two or more forms of energy can live at the same time in the same place. So you and I are talking, we've got the wireless internet around us, we've got GPS signals, we've got radio waves and television waves. Well, our loved ones, because energy cannot be destroyed, once our body's gone, our energy lives on. So here we are, right? That we've bought into this. We're coming to earth. Give it to me. And we've forgotten who we really are. We are divine souls having a human experience. We are supported by our loved ones. We've got this cheering committee around us. Certainly when we pass, we continue to learn and grow. Anything we didn't get to do here on earth, we can continue, we can learn there. But we always have one foot in here. We can still be with our loved ones. So many of the really great medium readings that I've witnessed, they're part of our life. Like, they see the littlest things and we know they're there. We host a free Sunday service online, 2:00 New York time every Sunday. We've had it for 4 years now. And there's a medium demonstration as part of that. And at one time, I remember this person, the medium said, "Your loved one just told me you just kissed their picture." And this person was like, "Oh my God, I just picked it up and, did that." You couldn't hear a kiss or anything. And there's tons of them. There's been well over 800 deceased people that have come through on our gatherings. But the level to which they're with us, and they have their sense of humor, and they have their personality, and they're supporting us, and they're loving us. So to live life remembering who we really are, these divine souls having a human experience. Yes, it is very, very hard, but there is support around us. We can quiet our mind. We can talk to our soul self. We can talk to our loved ones. When positive words come through, yeah, that's them, or that's our soul. This negative stuff, well, that's our ego. But we just have to remember who we are. And that's how I'd answer that question.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you said about being addicted to like negativity or fear. Even in the 12-step rooms, I would sit there and I would ask that question: why are we so negative? Why are we so addicted to being something always wrong with us, or just always full of fear? And it's like the human being is like addicted more to the negative versus the positive, because in the big book of AA, it talks about freedom and awakening and all that good stuff. But then we lean back to something's always wrong with us. And I never could get
It's
that.
part of being human. Part of being human. Like, why is the sky blue, right? It's because the sky is blue. Why are we fearful beings? Because we're fearful beings. It's just part of it. It's not fun. I don't like it. I get a lot of fear too, and I don't like it. But then I remember, okay, I'm almost 58 years old. I've made it this far with the decisions I've made and who I am. I got to trust my future self will make the right choice. And what's interesting is we can't be in action and have fear present at the same time, because technically we can only point our attention to one thing at a time. So if we are being very present, even if it's something we're afraid of, it's like the fear falls away because we're being in that present moment. Little tip on fear.
You're also a medium. You said you're a medium.
I'm not a practicing medium, so I don't do readings on people, but I have taken a bunch of courses to know that it's not only within me, it's within everybody. So the very first time I tried it, if I can tell you the story, if we have some time here, this was the very first thing that gave me an inkling that life after death could be real. Is I saw a medium do a stage show, and I was convinced that these things, this is just a show. This is entertainment. But she gave people such detailed information, and I thought, oh, there's something to this. Like, there's no way this lady's making that up, because nobody was getting rich here. It didn't cost a lot. She wasn't trying to sell a book. So I took a weekend course with her, and she gave the instructions. She says, our loved ones are around us, and we've got to be polite to them because they're still people, right? They are. And she paired us up with another person, and I didn't know anybody there. And she said, right now, we're not going to be a medium, but I'm going to just have you pretend that you are. And see, this is when you can engage your imagination, this is when the magic happens. When you think you can't do something, no magic. But she said, look at the person who's with you, sit knee to knee. Okay. She said, close your eyes. Envision that there's a big bubble of love around you, or light, whatever you want to think of. And she said, imagine that they have a loved one standing behind them. So because I wasn't really doing a medium reading, we're just practicing here, that I just invented that she had a man standing behind her. So with my eyes closed, I said, oh, you have a man standing behind you. And in my mind, I thought, it's your grandfather. It's your mom's father. Like, I'm making it up. And then I said, he was a fisherman in Denmark. Just the words came out of my mouth. I saw a fishing boat. I heard Denmark. I said his name was Jan. He had blonde hair and blue eyes, big gap between his front teeth. And I kid you not, I think I'm making this up. My eyes are closed. I'm just telling this lady the story of this guy I'm making up. And then I said he died of lung cancer. I saw him smoking away and coughing. And then I said, he never told his daughter that he loved her, which was her mom. And he wants you to give that message. So I opened my eyes, and this lady, she's just crying. Her grandfather's name was Jan. He was a fisherman in Denmark. He died of lung cancer. He fit the description. Her mother said that he was a rough father and never said, I love you. How could I have known that? How could I have made that up? And so for me, that was the first step I took. And I said, I have to investigate everything I can about this, because there's something here. And if mediumship's real, I shouldn't have it, right? Like, I'm not anybody special. But we do online medium classes, and every human being has it. We just have to slow down. We have to be present. We work on breakout rooms, just like you're talking to somebody on Zoom. You just create a whole bunch of love between you and that other person. And then you politely ask their loved ones if anyone has a message or wants to come through. And we pay attention to your feelings, not the pictures that come into your head, but your feelings. And your feelings somehow open up this story. And something really magical happens is you feel like you are this person. All of a sudden you feel love that you couldn't imagine for a total stranger in front of you in a Zoom room. And the spirit people use our own memories. For instance, I was working with a young man, and I was talking to him about his grandmother. And what comes into my mind is my grandmother, how she sat in a favorite chair, and she loved her Woman's World magazine. And after she passed, there were hundreds of magazines, all with the pages crimped down of her favorite articles. And this fella said, 100% true, right? So my grandmother was used in my memories to be able to share this. Sometimes I've been skiing on the Alps or at a football game, and, like, I've never done either one of those, right? And then the person would say, yeah, that's true. Is it 100% true all the time? No. So that's why I think it's important to take classes. And even if you don't want to be a medium, you just get that experience running through you. Because when you have these personal experiences, no one can take them away from you. No one. It's not a single person alive that can try to convince me that there is no afterlife. It's been 26 years I've been on this journey. I have witnessed a whole heck of a lot. I know it's real. I know it is. I don't try to push it on anybody, but if you want to know my stories, I'll certainly tell you. But each person is on their own journey called life. And I think at some point, everybody starts looking for that evidence. And once you look, when the student is ready, the teacher appears.
Thank you. I'm going to ask you one last question, if you don't mind. It's a two-part question. The difference between spirituality and religion, and in the afterlife, do you believe that religion even matters? Gandhi once says, in heaven, there is no religion, thank God.
Okay, so I'll take the second part first. I agree with Gandhi. I do. I think love is spirituality, seeing people through the eyes of love. That's it. That is the magic to it, being compassionate with yourself and with other people. You don't know the battles people face, and try to be understanding of people. and share love and kindness any way you can. So that's what I think awaits all of us. I think we can have that here now. I do think there is a difference between religion and spirituality. There are a lot of religions, probably most of them out there, that it's their way or no way, right? There's a lot of people that claim to be Christian, and our dear Jesus taught forgiveness and love and all those wonderful things, the golden rule, all those wonderful things. But people, if you're not that religion, they cast you aside, right? They only have that love for the people that are in that religion, So, yeah, are there religions out there that have it all handled, that it's all about love and light and all that? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. But I think that spirituality is something that we each have to answer for ourselves. I don't think it's bad if you belong to a religion, because say you go to a church every Sunday, there's times you get together, you're with people. People need people, right? But I also think every human being should look at their own internal compass about what they believe. There's a lot of people, and you know it, you've interviewed a bunch of people, that you might not agree with everything they have to say, but you might agree with some of it. There is no one right way for everybody. Take what empowers you to live the best life possible and use it and hang on to it and share it and give it away and love. And that's your spirituality. But know that all the answers are not outside of yourself. They're within you.
Yeah, thank you. Perfectly said. I appreciate it. And how do we find you? What are your links if someone wants to look more into your work?
The easiest thing is to go to wedon'tdie.com. Don't put the apostrophe in there, though. Just wedon'tdie.com. Spell it all as one word. And right there on the main page on the bottom, if you want to enter your name and email address, you get the copy of my book and those other things. But also there's the latest episode of both of my podcasts that you can click on and then see the others. If you go up to the store page, that's got everything that I've got coming up, both free and not free. So the classes, if you want to take a medium class or something, you can do that there. But then we also have that free Sunday gathering that I mentioned, that it's so great with the medium demonstration, and we have other events and things going on. So all at wedon'tdie.com.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And I'll be definitely putting your links on when we upload this video in about a week. So I really appreciate it. I'm going to end it with, are you familiar with the Bhagavad Gita?
Mm-hmm.
In chapter 2, it talks a lot about like how we don't die. And so in chapter 2, it says there's a verse, I think it's verse 30. And it says, the self of all beings living within the body is eternal and cannot be harmed. Therefore, do not grieve. I think there's a deeper knowing that we don't die. But then there's the human aspect of me where I still grieve because I love that person. And it comes down to love, So thank you for helping broaden our lens on the afterlife, death, life, and grief. So I really appreciate you coming on, and you're just a beautiful human being, and I appreciate it. Thank you.
My pleasure. And then you can come on my show. How about that?
Sounds good. I appreciate it. Just let me know. Have a good day.
You too.
Namastizzle.